Touchdown, Dallas.
It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com. Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
All right, I have to read this before we go to Mickey because this is a part of the chat room. From Cameron, look, I'm taking a test in one of my college classes, but I don't miss episodes from 365 Sports. And then Matthew responds, or someone else, maybe Scotty. Scott, Wade said the answer is C. It's a multiple choice question.
That's what I was talking about.
And speaking of which, multiple choice question, the Cowboys are having guys drop like flies, including their coaching staff with Leon Lett and the blocking sled. Mickey, the Demarcus Ware thing, was that just during the Demarcus Lawrence thing? Was that just normal practice, a walkthrough? What happened there?
Yeah, it was a normal practice, and my understanding it was during a kind of a one-on-one pass rush drill where he's trying to come around the edge, and gave out. So it was a fracture of the 5th metatarsal. So that's the bone on the outside of your foot that goes into your little toe. Which, by the way, David, he fractured the same bone his rookie year. If you remember, he missed like the first half of the season, but he incurred the same injury. You know what? It's a little bone, but I can attest that it's pretty darn painful because I broke mine actually 20 years ago this year playing tennis. And so Dr. Fowler, who was my doctor at the time, he's the Cowboys assistant orthopedic guy, and so they look at the how about this? The X-ray guy, the tech, comes in, he puts the X-ray up on the little screen there, and he's looking, and he goes, "Oh yeah, look, there it is." And he was like excited to find the crack, right? And I'm going, "No, this is not to be celebrated, right?" So Dr. Fowler tells me, he goes, if this foot depended on your living, like you were a real athlete, we'd do surgery, put a screw, and you'd be back in 4 or 6 weeks, something like that. But he said, since you're not a professional athlete, you're going to be in a boot for 2 months. And I said, oh, thanks a lot. So it looks like with the surgery, he could be back after the bye. That would give him more than 5-6 weeks to recover. But yeah, it's just one thing after another here. It just seems to have no end.
Well, the biggest thing on the defensive line was that they're already down Randy Gregory, right? Because he's more than likely not going to test out of COVID protocols this week before they go to L.A. So for a pass rush that was non-existent last week against Tampa, Justin Herbert this week, Mickey, it's not getting any easier. No, absolutely not. And that was going to be the one, key to the game for the Cowboys. You got to get pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. They didn't sack Tom Brady once. They only hit him twice. There were very few quarterback pressures. And now you got a younger guy who's more mobile than Tom Brady, throws the ball awfully well, and he can extend plays. And he doesn't get outside the pocket trying to run with the ball. He's looking downfield, as Dan Quinn pointed out. He's looking to throw the ball. So he said, I've got to tell my defensive guys, normal plays last, 2, 3, 4 seconds. He said, I'm telling them, you better be ready to go 7 or 8 seconds with this guy, and don't give up on the play because he can still hurt you.
What else concerns you about them outside of quarterback, Mickey?
Well, in light of La'el Collins, suspended 5 games and having to start a backup at right tackle because they decided that they're not going to move Zach Martin out there. Mm-hmm. And from what I can tell, it's going to be Terrence Steele, last year's undrafted rookie free agent that ended up starting 14 games because Collins missed the entire season. Looks like he's going to be the guy. And they've just got to hope that 14 starts last year of experience is going to make him a better player because they struggled out there to the point they did move Zach Martin out there for a couple of games until he got hurt. So it concerns me that they've got to protect Dak Prescott because Joey Bosa is probably going to line up every play right over that right tackle spot, and we know he's a load. So in my books, they need to put the tight end in Terrence Steele's hip pocket, and if that means setting him there from the start, motioning him there, or motioning over there before the tight end goes out in a pass pattern so he can chip and help Steele out. They just can't leave him out there hung out to dry.
What is more of a concern with the Lyle Collins news? Is it a concern with the offensive line, or what's going on now with the lack of depth on the defensive line?
Yeah, I think at this point, the defensive line. I think that you can probably do some things offensively to kind. I mean, if you have to just play two tight ends all the time, then just play two tight ends, one on each end of the line, if that's what you need, because they need to run the ball on this team. Washington ran for 124 yards against them, so that shows you should be able to run on this team and have. And combine that threat with their ability to throw the ball, that helps out. But the defense worries me. You just lost potentially your two best pressure players. And next guy's up, Dorrance Armstrong, Terrell Basham. Basham's been in the league. Dorrance Armstrong's had nice training camps, but somehow when he gets into the season, he somewhat disappears. If they can't get pressure on Herbert, then you're looking at another game where the offense is going to have to score 30 points to be able to win. And going in initially, what concerned me about the defense is they gave up 31 points, right? And they still had 4 takeaways. So despite the 4 takeaways, they still gave up 31 points. If you don't get those takeaways, you might have given up 40 points.
Yeah, the positive was they forced turnovers, and they did. The negative is, despite that, they gave up 31 freaking points. That's crazy. Yeah.
And one of those takeaways was down inside the 10-yard line, right? They were getting ready to score. It was a 10 or 15, something like that. And so, they don't get the takeaway, and you can't count on, okay, I'm going to get 4 takeaways every game or 3 takeaways, because gosh knows we knew they struggled with that last year. But here they are tied for first with a +3 turnover differential. But they got to be better defensively. And to me, to be better defensively, they had to get pressure on the opposing quarterback. Who knows? Maybe they change up. Maybe they change up how they play up front. Maybe they blitz more, take some chances that way, because they didn't do too much blitzing against Brady, because I'm sure Brady has seen every blitz anybody can concoct and probably would burn you. So maybe a younger quarterback, they can take advantage of that. But they better be pretty creative, I think, with their defensive game plan to compensate for not having Lawrence, who's your best defensive player, right, and potentially Gregory too.
Mickey, while it's great that Dak Prescott can do what he did and throw 58 times, it worries me if that's the Cowboys' offense for this year. Does it worry you that they maybe, I know it's Tampa Bay, and I'm hoping that's a one-game sample size, but if they keep trying to throw the ball 50 times, I don't think they're going to win very much.
Well, if they didn't throw it 58 times and they ran it 20 times and averaged 2 yards a carry, that wasn't going to get them anywhere either, right?
Yeah.
So, again, I think it had more to do with how Tampa Bay played their defense. They played 5-man front, and they extended the edge, right? So if you were going to beat them, you were going to have to beat them to the edge. But they weren't getting anywhere running between the tackles. So basically, Tampa Bay was saying, okay, we know what Ezekiel Elliott can do, and he's not going to beat us. We'll take our chances with Dak Prescott. What kind of scouting report did they have on Dak? They didn't know that he wasn't hurt. They didn't know that his shoulder was fine, his arm was fine, his ankle was fine. The only scouting report they would have had on his physical ability would have been what they saw on Hard Knocks. And then we saw what Phil Simms saw on Hard Knocks and said there's still something wrong with Dak's arm because he's not throwing the ball with velocity. Well, I guess he never thought that the Cowboys have right of first refusal, which gets on Hard Knocks, and they made sure they didn't show a lot of what Dak Prescott was able to do. And Tampa Bay nearly lost their bet, right? Because he nearly beat them just throwing the ball and Zeke only running it 11 times. I think that'll change. I see where Washington gave up the 120-some yards rushing. Washington got 120-some yards rushing against the Chargers. So if they can do that, certainly the Cowboys should be able to do that, providing that they can patch up that right tackle spot.
Okay, Mickey, the stat, obviously the one that matters with what the Chargers did, winning at Washington 20-16. And I don't know how often I've ever seen this. They were 14 of 19, what is against a respectable and even sometimes thought of as a really good defense. 14 of 19 on third downs. How much does that have to worry you?
That's a record, by the way. I read in their release. It's an NFL record with 14 of 19, that type of conversion on third down. Yeah, it just goes to show you, if it's third down, chances are they're probably throwing the football. And if you don't get pressure on Herbert, he's good enough to beat you. You know what, David? Our guy down that takes care of a lot of the radio stuff for us, Douglas Barricklow, he found a cut. How about this? He found a cut. Bill Jones and I were doing our Legends radio show, and our guest was Gil Brandt. And at some point in that show, and this was 2018, so it would have been Justin Herbert's junior year at Oregon, he said, the best quarterback I've ever seen, and he meant scouting him coming out of coming out of college as a draft choice, is Justin Herbert. And he went through this whole thing on how great Justin Herbert was. Well, he was right, because he's awfully good. Hey, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and look at his numbers as a rookie. He can really throw the football. So again, you've got to get pressure on him. And I'm assuming you saw the Washington game, but the only reason I think they held, and it's a really good Washington defense, they held the Chargers to 20 points. I guess there was a few turnovers that short-circuited the Los Angeles offense.
All right, Mickey, thank you, sir. Ought to be fun to watch. San Diego, or used to be, Chargers in L.A. hosting the Cowboys trying to get that win, and then Philadelphia on a Monday night following. Mickey, thank you. Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.